All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the hidden forces that are secretly running your daily life, and we're going to answer a question I think every single one of us has asked ourselves at one point or another.
I mean, seriously, have you ever felt this? You see a friend just crushing it with some new diet or a workout plan, you try the exact same thing, and it's a total flop. It just won't stick. Well, it turns out the reason for that has way less to do with willpower than you might think.
And there it is. That's the answer. This quote from behavioral geneticist Robert Plomin, it just hits the nail on the head. See, the habits you find easy and the ones you struggle with, they aren't random at all. They are deeply, powerfully shaped by your genes.
And we're not just talking about a few little quirks here. We're talking about, well, pretty much everything. Researchers have found that your genes influence how much TV you watch, how you handle stress, even how captivated you feel at a concert. It is the fundamental blueprint for who you are.
Okay, so how does this genetic blueprint actually show up in our daily lives? Well, the most scientifically solid way to understand this is through personality, specifically a model that scientists call the Big Five. You can think of it as the operating system that your genes installed.
First up, you've got openness. So, are you the kind of person who's always up for trying a new, weird restaurant and loves to kick around abstract ideas? Or do you find real comfort in your routine, in things that are reliable and consistent? Neither is right or wrong. They're just different ends of the spectrum.
Next on the list is conscientiousness. This is all about how you approach order and discipline. On one side, you have the super organized, highly efficient planner. And on the other, you've got the more spontaneous, easygoing type who's happy to just go with the flow.
Now, for one, we all know. Extroversion. This is that scale from being really outgoing and energetic, the kind of person who gets fueled up by being around people, all the way to the more solitary and reserved introvert who needs some quiet time to recharge their batteries.
Then we have agreeableness. People who are high in this tend to be really friendly, kind, and compassionate. On the flip side, people lower in agreeableness might be more analytical, more comfortable with a good debate, and maybe a little more detached. And last but not least, there's neuroticism. This one basically describes how much you tend to experience negative emotions. So if you're high in neuroticism, you might be a bit more anxious and sensitive. If you're low in it, you're probably more often confident, calm, and steady.
Okay, so that's the what. But what about the how? The really wild part is that these aren't just personality quizzes on the internet. There is real, measurable biology behind every single one of these traits. Let's look at some proof.
This is just incredible. Scientists discovered they could get a hint of your future personality when you were just a baby. So they played a loud noise for a bunch of infants. Some babies turned towards it, and some turned away. They tracked these kids for years, and guess what? The babies who turned towards the sound were way more likely to grow up to be extroverts. It's wired in that early.
Remember agreeableness? Well, it turns out that people who are naturally kind and considerate tend to have higher levels of oxytocin, the social bonding hormone. It boosts feelings of trust, so it makes perfect sense that someone with this wiring would find it natural to build habits like organizing get-togethers or always remembering to write thank you notes.
And what about neuroticism? Well, that's connected to the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's little threat detector. For people who score high in neuroticism, that detector is often extra sensitive. Their brains are literally, physically more tuned in to spotting negative things in their environment, which, explains why they might be more prone to worry.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Knowing all this isn't an excuse. It's a strategy guide. The most effective way to change your life isn't to fight against your own biology, it's to work with it. Let's talk about what that actually looks like.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the golden rule. Trying to force a habit that goes against your nature, it feels exactly like swimming upstream against a powerful current. It's exhausting, and it usually ends with you feeling guilty and like a failure. But what if you just turned around and let the current carry you? That's when building a habit stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling natural.
Let's use a real practical example. Say you're just not a naturally organized person. You're a bit lower in conscientiousness. Trying to force yourself to become a hyper-organized neat freak overnight is a recipe for misery. So instead, you work with your nature. You design your environment to do the heavy lifting for you, setting up systems that make being organized the easiest possible choice.
And this brings us to the most empowering idea of all. The goal isn't to build the best habits that you read about in some book. The goal is to build the habits that are best for you, the ones that actually line up with your personality and bring you some joy.
I mean, think about it. To get fit, do you have to lift weights like a bodybuilder? No way! Maybe you'd have way more fun as a cyclist or a rock climber.
Does your friend's low-carb diet just make you miserable? Maybe a low-fat approach is the answer for you. And hey, if you want to read more, don't feel like you have to slog through dense nonfiction. If you love romance novels, read romance novels.
This is the bottom line. For any good habit you want to build, there's a version of it out there that can actually bring you joy and satisfaction. You just have to find it. And when you do, when you align that habit with your true nature, it stops being work and starts being, well, just a part of who you are.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What's a habit you've always struggled with, and how could you maybe redesign it to actually fit your unique personality? Answering that question for yourself could honestly change everything. Thanks for digging into this with me.